Rev up your engines!
Well, I guess some things die hard. GM announced that they're going to bring back the Hummer, but they're going to bring it back as an all-electric vehicle. I guess they can't give up with the idea. They're not going to be exactly making it themselves. It's going to be a low volume when they start it up. Well, hey, the original was pretty low volume too, you know? I guess this time they're going to learn their lessons, and they're going to have it built somewhere else, see if they sell, and if they don't sell, then drop it like a lead balloon. There's a certain amount of people that want something like that. And of course, if you really think about it, making an electric vehicle that big, gigantic, goes contra against electric vehicles in the beginning, because you want efficiency for the electric motor, doesn't have to pull too much weight while you're making something big and gigantic. Gonna prove to be probably successful on the other realm of bigness, the 18-wheelers, the big giant semi-trucks. You got a completely different mindset there. You know where they're going, how far they go, how far the batteries have to go, how much weight they're taking, how much power they need exactly. It can be set up in an infrastructure for a business that says, okay, we're going from here to here, and then we got charging stations here and charging stations there, and they're all set up for it. Be a professional setup, not like a person driving around hoping they can find a place to recharge it, or hope they can find a place where people can fix it when it breaks. These big companies with the big 18-wheelers, they'll have it all set up for that. They're going to experiment with the Hummer, I guess. Have somebody else build the thing, and if it does sell, then maybe they'll ramp up production. They keep trying to resurrect the Hummer brand. I'll tell you what, I'm not crossing my fingers on that one. We'll see what happens in 2023. But they do say that they're going to do it. They're going to resurrect the Hummer and make it as an all-electric vehicle. You almost can't believe this. Nissan has issued a third round of ABS pump recalls because the pumps could leak, get on a circuit board, and start a fire. This is 2015 to 18 Muranos, Maximas, Pathfinders, and even the Infiniti QX60. Relatively expensive vehicles, but they're certainly not making them right. Now, the first round in 2016, they recalled 130,000 vehicles. The second round in 2018, they recalled 215,000, and now a recall of 450,000 of these things. Let's just say the quality of Nissans, as I've been saying for decades, has been going down, down, down. And they might be putting money up into advertising to get people to buy them. But, as you saw in the recent thing that I talked about, their profits of the first half of 2019 were down 75%. That is an enormous drop. And don't think that recalling 450,000 cars doesn't have anything to do with it. Of course it does. People think, whoo, boy, am I glad I didn't buy one of those clunkers. Be leery about buying a Nissan. This may be the tip of the iceberg. Who knows what else is falling apart on the things. ADF13 says, Scotty, what do you think about performance chips? Will one cause issues with the 2005 Honda Element with over 350,000 miles? Well, it easily could. Back in the day, when they first got computers in cars, the computers were a solid computer, and they had RAM chips, the RAM them access memory chips, and those were replaceable. And the performance chips would be, you'd take those out and you put the performance ones in. And if they were made correctly and the guys knew what they were doing, they could work perfectly fine. But you take your 2005 Honda Element, it doesn't have anything like that. And I don't know if I was ever doing it on a vehicle with that kind of mileage, especially a little thing like a Honda Element, because if you do any kind of performance tuning on any modern car, you need a pro doing it, and you got to really know how to rewrite software to make it run under all varying conditions. See, now it's easier for the race car guys to do it because they only care about one thing: brute speed at high RPM. So they tune them for brute speed for high RPMs. It'll run best at the higher speeds. But a regular car, you want it to run at all different speeds. So it's very complicated to set them up right. You really don't want to mess with how it was set up by the Honda engineers. These guys knew what they were doing when they built them in the first place. Orange Oratory says, Scotty, why are used Range Rovers so cheap? Good question, and a true one too. Because they're so poorly made, that's why. Those things are the biggest money pits in terms of how often they break, how much the parts cost, how expensive they are to fix. And that's why used ones are so cheap. The newer ones, no. They're just over-engineered pieces of garbage. They originally were English, then Tata, the Indian company, bought them, and now the Chinese owned half of it. So they're half Indian, half Chinese. They're so badly made even there that a couple months ago, the Chinese were protesting at the headquarters in China for a Range Rover Jaguar, because now it's one company, Jaguar Range Rover. And they were protesting the Chinese that they were making them so poorly because they had so many recalls and the quality control so bad. And that's people in China protesting about these vehicles. That's why you can get them used cheap. Mustang Walt says my wife has an 11 Honda CR-V with about 190,000 miles. Has been running great with no issues, but recently started burning oil. What should I do? Change the PCV valve. They don't cost much. Positive crankcase ventilation. They keep the oil from getting sucked into the engine when it's reburning just the gases from the crankcase. PCV, positive crankcase ventilation. It gets rid of the extra pressure. But oil can get in it, and if your valve's bad, the oil will go right through the whole system and it'll burn oil. Pray it's that, because if it isn't, you're going to have to live with it. Because if it isn't, it either means your valves are worn and the seals are sucking oil, or your piston rings are worn. It's got, what, 190,000 miles. They'll burn some oil. Now, if you find it burns a quart of oil every 1,000 miles or so, live with it. Just do it. And if it really starts to burn it heavy, then you start thinking maybe it's time to get rid of it and get another vehicle. But oil is cheap. Engines aren't. If it's just a little, just add it and keep it up as it goes. Don't let it run low. I had a customer with one of those a couple months ago. She had her oil changed in July, and now it's November. She brought it in. It was running bad, and I said, you know, you only had half a quart of oil left in your car. Put some heavy-duty oil stabilizer, new oil, change the oil filter, and luckily the noise went away. But I said to her, you know, you only had half a quart of oil left. Well, I had it changed in July. I'm like, that was a long time ago. Have you checked it? No. I said, you got to check it. You get a car that gets older, 190,000 miles, hers at 140. Don't let an engine be ruined because it's low enough. Check it every once in a while. And then if you see it burns oil, maybe every time you fill it up with gas, just check it to make sure. Oil cans now, so you can put just part of it in, put the top in, put it back in the trunk, and add it when it's low. Jim H. 911 says, I'm car shopping now. What does this description mean? 318 motor runs but has a miss. 318 is the cubic inch size of the engine. If it says it has a miss, don't buy it. You're talking about buying a used car. Don't buy it. Cars misfire. Miss means the engine is not running correctly. It can be an ignition problem. It can be a fuel injection problem. It can be a head gasket blowing problem. It can be an intake manifold gasket. It can be a zillion things. Don't ever buy a car that is misfiring unless you're a mechanic and you're getting it dirt cheap, because it could be anything from a $20 fix to a $5,000 fix. And why get involved in somebody else's problem when it's misfiring and not running correctly? That's just a mistaken thing to do. Don't ever do that. Mark 2018 says, Scotty, I need a thermostat for my 95 Nissan Maxima AutoZone. Has two options: Duralast brand or a Melee that costs $4 more. Okay, get the Melee one. You always want to buy the most quality thermostat you can. Keeps your engine from overheating, lets it warm up in the winter. On those Nissans, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to change it anyways. You want something that's going to last a really long time. Don't go cheap when it comes to part like that, especially if you're only talking about saving $4 or $5. Always use your head with that. If the really good one is just a little bit more, buy the really good one. Don't buy the cheap one. You never know. I mean, the quality of thermostats, I've seen it's been going downhill. I've seen people buy discount ones, and within a year and a half, they're broken, and some of them don't work right out of the box. You'd want to use a quality one. And Melee's been a company that's been around for a really long time. They make quality thermostats. You don't want to go to an OEM one from the dealer. The Mileys are perfectly fine. Snellings 23 asks, Scotty, I always experience a leak of some kind of my brakes. I checked all the calipers or drums and back. I didn't see anything leaking. Help. If you are positively sure you don't see any leaks, and I mean follow all the lines, all the rubber hoses, all the metal hoses if it's an old car, if they're rotten, every wheel to see if there's any fluid leaking and they're wet. But if you don't see any, then odds are it's your brake master cylinder. Because the brake master cylinder, you step on it, rod pushes in, has a seal on the back side, and if it leaks there, it will leak inside your brake booster and you won't see it. So when you take the brake master cylinder off, look inside the master cylinder and get any kind of a suction device, and if you stick it in and you suck and brake fluid comes out, it's leaking. That's only supposed to have air in it. And generally that means your brake master cylinder is leaking on the back seal, leaking inside the brake booster, which you can't see inside until you take the master cylinder off. That's 99.9% what's leaking, because anything else is leaking. It's got to leak externally where you're going to see it. Shema says, Scotty, the door strips on my car aren't looking good. What can I do? There's lots of rejuvenating things out there. One of the best ones I've ever found is called Back to Black. They sell it at AutoZone. I got boxes piles of it lying around. Do it in the shade. Never do it in the sun. Do it in the shade. First you wash it. Then you put this stuff on. You let it sit for like 15, 20 minutes. You wipe it off. Put another layer on. Do that 3 or 4 times. That's the best thing that I have ever seen. Now, sometimes plastic just gets so faded, there's nothing you can do other than buff them down, and if they're painted, repaint them, or just rip them off, buy new ones, and glue them on. Most of them these days are glued on. They used to be snapped on, but most of them are glued on now, so it's no big deal. You can easily glue it on yourself. If they're really far gone, you'll have to do that, but a lot of times it's back to black and fix them up pretty good. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.